doesn't have much time.
All right, okay, finally, tell me, what is this other threat?
This is Aaron Russo, a filmmaker and former politician. To his left is Nicholas Rockefeller of the infamous Rockefeller banking and business dynasty. After maintaining a close friendship with Nicholas Rockefeller, Aaron eventually ended the relationship, appalled by what he had learned about the Rockefellers and their ambitions.
I got a call one day from an attorney woman I knew, and she said, "Would you like to meet one of the Rockefellers?" I said, "Sure, I'd love to." And we became friends, and he began to divulge a lot of things to me. So he said to me one night, he said that there's going to be an event there, and out of that event, you're going to see we're going to go into Afghanistan, so we can run pipelines from the Caspian Sea. We're going to go into Iraq to take the oil and establish a base in the Middle East, and we're going to go into Venezuela and try and get rid of Chavez. And the first two they've accomplished. Chavez they didn't accomplish. And he said you're going to see guys going into caves looking for looking for people that they're never going to find. You know, he was laughing about the fact that you have this war on terror. There's no real enemy. He's talking about how by having this war on terror, you can never win it because it's an eternal war. And so you can always keep taking people's liberties away. And I said, how are you going to convince people that this war is real? He said, but the media. The media can convince everybody it's real. I mean, it's just that you keep talking about things. You keep saying it over and over and over again, and eventually people believe it. You created the Federal Reserve in 1913 through lies. You create 9/11, which is another lie. Through 9/11, then you're fighting a war on terror, and now all of a sudden you go into Iraq, which was another lie, and now they're going to do Iran. And it's all one thing leading to another, leading to another, leading to another. Now, I would say, what are you doing this for? What's the point of this thing? You have all the money in the world you ever want. You have all the power. I said, you're hurting people. It's not a good thing. And he would say, what do you care about the people for? Take care of yourself and you take care of your family. And then I said to him, what are the ultimate goals here? He said, the ultimate goal is to get everybody in this world chipped with the RFID chip and have all money be on those chips and everything on those chips.
Just sort of like cold, it was just like cold, and I used to say to him, what's the point of all this? You have all the money in the world you need, you have all the power you need, what's the point? What's the end goal? And he said the end goal is to get everybody chipped, to control the whole society.
It's really powerful stuff, AI.
AI, as they call it, it is so scary.
We're rapidly headed towards digital superintelligence that far exceeds any human. I think it's very obvious.
Mark my words, AI is far more dangerous than nukes.
Very real dangers of being weaponized. Just like with the nuclear arms race, there are no winners.
These breakout moments could prove to be very dangerous.
Countries all over the world that are now developing very, very high performance AI that is very frightening.
No, because you can get that into wars and you can get that into other things.
So why do we have no regulatory oversight? This is insane.
If you're developing an AI algorithm today that has a negative impact on other people, you bear the liability for it.
Something has to be done about this, and it has to be done fast.
We need to be talking to all of them and making sure that we develop treaties that protect humanity.
Coming together as a kind of a global community.
Before we have full breakout, to get some regulatory structure around it.
This is a tremendous problem in terms of security. This is a problem that they better get working on right now.
So you talk about this will enable people to do things they couldn't do, but what about things they shouldn't do? How much do you worry about that?
Well, I think that's part of building the tools. And there are all sorts of things that you could imagine people using this technology for. What we build, ChatGPT, we don't want it used that way. You can imagine cybersecurity incidents with these models where people use them to hack into systems.
You testified on the Hill, you stay in touch with lawmakers. Do you think they're the ones to add the guardrails? Is it up to the developers?
No, I think it should be a question for society. Like, it should not be OpenAI gets to decide on its own how ChatGPT or how the technology in general is used or not used.
You think Congress needs to legislate those guardrails, the restrictions regulated?
I think, yes, at some point.
Where are we on the spectrum of getting to where AI is making its own autonomous decisions?
It'll feel more like an increasingly senior coworker. Not one moment it was not autonomous and then one moment it was.
Where are we on the spectrum of getting to where AI is making its own autonomous decisions?
As its capabilities go up, maybe right now you can give it a 5-second task without supervision. And eventually you give it a 5-minute task and then a 5-hour task and then a 5-day task. And maybe someday it can go to a 5-month task, and that's like a full scientist off exploring something. Incoming
Vice President J.D. Vance, he's talked about those who have raised huge concerns, worries about AI is going to kill everybody and take over the human race and replace us. I think a lot of people, they worry about AI becoming sentient, about it making autonomous decisions, about it telling humans you're no longer in charge.
I think, is it conscious or not will not be the right question, but it will be like, how complex of a task can it do on its own?
What about when the tool gets smarter than we are? Or the tool decides to take over? Because you seem very calm and chill about the future and optimistic that we are going to be able to handle this responsibly.
I think tools in many senses are already smarter than we are.
It's really important to project ourselves into the future where we have machines that are as smart as us on many counts. If we create entities that are smarter than us and have their own goals, what does that mean for humanity? Are we in danger?
The concerns, what we should be wary of, what do you feel are the risks?
Intelligence gives power. Who's going to control that power? What are the goals that we're going to ask these systems to achieve? A discovery that was made in the last few years that the bigger we make these systems, the smarter they are.
How far into the future are these concerns? Are we talking centuries, decades?
If you ask people who do research in AI, or if you ask people who are in those companies and are worried about what they're doing, it might be as little as a few years. So I think centuries is unlikely. Decades is very plausible. But if it's 5 years, we're not ready. Either technically, because we don't have methods to make sure that these systems will not harm people or will not turn against people. We don't know. We don't know how to do that. And we have even arguments that the way we're currently training them would lead to systems that turn against humans.
Jeffrey Hinton, who is really the godfather of AI. He said in the New York Times that he now regrets his life's work. That's pretty profound. He said, I console myself with the normal excuse. If I hadn't done it, somebody else would have. I'm curious what you think of that and whether A, you've had conversations with him about that, and B, how you, who's leading this company and doing this work, considers it.
Look, we had this conversation even when he was leaving, but I think he definitely feels, and something which a lot of us share, by the way, I've said this many years ago, I call this the most profound technology, as profound as fire or electricity, and I think it's going to affect all walks of life, and I think he's definitely of the opinion we need to think deeply about this technology as early as possible and get it right for the benefit of humanity. And I think he has concerns we may not. And he's speaking up about it. That's great. Look, I'm definitely on the optimistic side. I mean, those things are being used by people to discover better drugs, right? Tackle problems like cancer and vaccines and so on. So there are many, many areas in which AI is going. So I think technology is going to make progress. And that arc of progress is bigger than any one person alone. So, no one person
Does he feel any better about it now? Do you think you've convinced him?
I think, look, Jeff should speak for himself. I think, look, he's proud of the work he has done. He's just asking questions so that he just wants us all to think about the implications of this technology.
The fate of humanity must never be left to the black box of an algorithm.
Artificial intelligence represents both the greatest opportunity and at the same time an existential threat.
With AI, hackers can make cyber attacks more destructive, harder to trace.
Access to these technologies by terrorist and criminal groups constitutes a threat to international security.
Challenges to international peace and security involving AI can come not only from humans abusing AI, but also from AI being out of human control.
The international community should jointly strengthen the global AI governance to ensure that AI is safe, reliable, fair, and under control in a genuine manner.
Human security should serve as a foundation principles when we develop and use responsible AI.
To turn this vision into reality, key measures are important.
President Biden and President Xi affirmed that only humans should control the decision to use nuclear weapons.
An international framework for AI governance will ensure the full and equal representation of all countries.
Every moment of delay in establishing international guardrails increases the risk for us all.
Large language models have both civilian and military applications. They can be used to do good, and they can be used to cause harm. And right now, we don't know how to put robust guardrails around them to prevent them being misused. A person could use it as an assistant to help them. Say, okay, I'm trying to adjust this virus to make it more lethal. How can I do that? You know, I want to conduct a terrorist attack. I want to kill as many people as I can. I worry that not enough people are taking the risks of AI seriously.
You've called for a ban on AI-powered military robots. Is this Hollywood idea of killer robots actually not that far-fetched?
Oh, it's not far-fetched at all. It's coming very soon, like in the next few years. And all of the governments that sell arms, like the US and Russia and Britain and Israel, all of those governments refuse to regulate military uses of AI. So if you look at the European regulations, they've got all these limitations on AI. It should be sort of transparent and this and that, shouldn't be discriminate. But there's a little clause in there that says none of this applies to military uses of AI. They don't like regulation themselves. And all of the big armaments manufacturers are very keen to make killer robots. So if you look at Asimov's laws of robotics, that, you know, the first law should be do not harm people. Well, that's the whole point of a killer robot. That's not going to be built into a killer robot.
OpenAI is not for sale. The OpenAI mission is not for sale. Elon tries all sorts of things for a long time. This is this week's episode.
You take it seriously at all? What do you think he's trying to drive at with this?
I think he's probably just trying to slow us down. He obviously is a competitor. He's working hard and he's raised a lot of money for XAI, and they're trying to compete with us from a technological perspective, from getting the product into the market. And I wish he would just compete by building a better product, but I think there's been a lot of tactics, many lawsuits, all sorts of other crazy stuff. Now this, and we'll try to just put our head down and keep working.
Do you think Musk's approach then is from a position of insecurity about XAI?
Probably his whole life is from a position of insecurity. I feel for the guy.
You feel for him?
I do, actually. I don't think he's like a happy person. I do feel for him.
Okay. Do you worry that he has this proximity to the president and he can influence the decision-making of the US presidency and policies around this agenda on AI?
Not particularly. Maybe I should, but not particularly. I mean, I try to just wake up and think about how we're going to make our technology better.
Sam, should you have taken Elon's offer?
You refused $1 billion for Elon Musk. What do you want to say to Elon Musk?
Received what from him?
Almost $100 billion, right?
The company is not for sale, neither is the mission. We're happy to buy Twitter if you want to talk about that.
Can you afford your own company now, though? It does raise that question. Can you afford to buy OpenAI off the non-profit now?
The board will decide what to do there. Like the nonprofit will continue as a very, very strong thing. The mission is really important, and we're just, we're totally focused on making sure we preserve that.
Mr. Altman, quick question for Reuters. Can you react to Elon Musk's offer?
I have nothing new to say.
Well,
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. How so?
The company is not for sale.
Sorry?
The company is not for sale. It's like another one of his, tactics to try to mess with us. But
what about the amount he offered?
I have not paid it. I mean, it's just, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
I don't trust OpenAI. I mean, I started that company as a non-profit open source.
Yes.
The open in OpenAI, I named the company.
Yeah.
OpenAI as an open source, and it is now extremely closed source, and maximizing profit. So,
does risking?
I don't understand how you actually go from being an open source nonprofit to a closed source for maximum profit organization. I'm missing.
Well, but Sam Altman got rich, though, didn't he?
At various points, he's claimed not to be getting rich, but he's claimed many things that were false. And now apparently he's going to get $10 billion of stock or something like that. So I don't trust Sam Altman, and I don't think we want to have the most powerful AI in the world controlled by someone who is not trustworthy.
Okay. You make a lot of money, do you?
No. I paid enough for health insurance. I have no equity in OpenAI.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. You need a lawyer.
I need a what?
You need a lawyer or an agent.
I'm doing this because I love it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Senator Kennedy.
What is your best case scenario for AI and worst case? I can't quite I think the good case is just so unbelievably good that you sound like a really crazy person to start talking about it. And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us. And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us. And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us.
We are on an exponential curve, and a relatively steep one.
And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us. And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us.
It's very bad thinking to not take the apocalyptic downside very seriously.
And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us. And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us.
You signed a 22-word statement warning about the dangers of AI.
And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us. And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us.
It reads, mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority alongside other societal scale risks such as pandemics and nuclear war.
And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us. And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us. And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us.
AI will probably, most likely, sort of lead to the end of the world.
And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us. And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us. And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us.
My worst fears are that we, the field, the technology, the industry, cause significant harm to the world.
And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us. And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us. And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us.
I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong.
And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us.
We try to be very clear-eyed about what the downside case is.
And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us. And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us. And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us.
I think now is the time to start taking it really seriously.
And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us.
And figure out, as a globe, what we are going to do to make sure we don't face calamity.
And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us. And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us. And the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us.
As AI starts to get really good at programming, clearly it's going to be used for cyber attacks. And so cyber defense is something we need to stay ahead of. I am optimistic that AI can contribute a lot, but it is harder to be on defense than offense. So I think you bring up a great point, and the world has got to start to take this very seriously quickly.
Yeah, because
But
there's always a bad guy.
It's a big risk.
The machines taking over is a threat for everybody. It's a threat for the Chinese and for the Americans and for the Europeans, just like a global nuclear war was.
There may well be no greater test of our leadership than how we deal with AI.
Indeed, to quote the statement made earlier this year by hundreds of the world's leading AI experts, mitigating the risk of extinction from AI
should be a global priority, alongside other societal scale risks such as pandemics and nuclear war.
These threats are often referred to as the existential threats of AI, because of course they could endanger the very existence of humanity.
The rapid rise of new technologies poses another unpredictable existential risk. Artificial intelligence will change virtually everything we know.
We need to jointly fend off risks and develop AI governance frameworks.
AI, as they call it, it is so scary.
Visual superintelligence is possibly a great filter. I hope it isn't, but it might be.
There is a non-zero risk of those types of things if things go wrong.
It's not like there's only a 1% chance of it taking over. It's much bigger than that.
My chance that something goes, really quite catastrophically wrong on the scale of human civilization, it might be somewhere between 10 and 25%.
The bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us.
Your dreams are no longer safe.
How about this? Can we go from the patterns of your brain when you're looking at an image to reconstructing the image? So the way this worked was they put human beings inside an fMRI machine. They had them look at images and figure out what the patterns are, translate from image to brain patterns. And then, of course, they would hide the image. So this is a image of a giraffe that the computer has never seen. It's only looking at the fMRI data, and this is what the computer thinks the human is seeing. Yeah. Now, to get state of the art, here's where the combinatorial aspects, why you can start to see these are all the same demo. To do this kind of imaging, the latest paper, the one that happened even after this, which is already better, uses stable diffusion, uses the thing that you use to make art. What should a thing that you use to make art have anything to do with reading your brain? But of course it goes further. So in this one, they said, can they understand the inner monologue, the things you're saying to yourself in your own mind? Mind you, by the way, when you dream, your visual cortex runs in reverse, so your dreams are no longer safe. But we'll try this. So they had people watch a video and just narrate what was going on in the video in their mind. So there's a woman, she gets hit in the back, she falls over. This is what the computer reconstructed the person thinking. See a girl, looks just like me, get hit in the back, and then she is knocked off. So our thoughts, are starting to be decoded. Yeah. Just think about what this means for authoritarian states, for instance. Or if you want to generate images that maximally activate your pleasure sensor, or anything else. Okay, but let's keep going, right? To really get the sense of the combinatorics of this. How about, can we go from Wi-Fi radio signals, sort of like the Wi-Fi routers in your house, they're bouncing off radio signals that work sort of like sonar. Can you go from that to where human beings are, to images? So what they did is they had, a camera looking at a space with people in it. That's sort of coming in from one eye. The other eye is the radio signals, so sonar from the Wi-Fi router. And they just learned to predict, this is where the human beings are. Then they took away the camera. So all the AI had was the language of radio signals bouncing around a room. And this is what they're able to reconstruct. Real-time 3D pose estimation, right? So suddenly AI has turned every Wi-Fi router into a camera that can work in the dark, specially tuned for tracking living beings. But, luckily, that would require hacking Wi-Fi routers to be able to, do something with that. But how about this? Computer code That's just a type of language. So you can say, and this is a real example that I tried, GPT, find me a security vulnerability, then write some code to exploit it.
Within 10 years, 20 years at the most, we will not recognize our world. We will see robots everywhere.
Doing everything.
Doing everything. Artificial general intelligence, where the machines are as smart as humans or smarter. And then the next step is, and this is the big scary part, is artificial superintelligence, where the machines are just a little bit smarter than humans, or perhaps 1 billion times smarter than humans, and they have their own agendas.
Will they get to the point where they will be able to build things on their own?
They already are. They're writing their own algorithms, and this is a big problem. Scientists say, we don't understand how the robots are coming up with their conclusions. There's a very dark side of this, where these machines are making decisions for and about humans, and humans have no idea how they're coming to these conclusions. So the next step is where the artificially intelligent entities begin to make plans and programs for humanity.